As the famous quote goes, God made man, Samuel Colt made them equal.
A homicide investigation continues near Pebble and Pecos. Metro says a woman and her current boyfriend were in their home when the woman's ex-boyfriend broke in. Metro says the ex-boyfriend pointed a gun at the current boyfriend's head. That's when the woman shot her ex-boyfriend with her own gun. 3 kids were inside the home when it happened. They were not harmed.
Look, let's be honest. Most of these anti-gun groups are run by women, and most of these women are raging feminists. Yet, when stories like this happen, you don't hear a peep from these groups. That's because they only care about women who are victims, not the women who actually use the Second Amendment right to protect themselves. Whether you like it or not, the gun is the equalizer, especially when we're talking about women who have to deal with criminals or crazy ex-boyfriends who are much bigger and stronger than they are. This woman's ex-boyfriend thought he had the upper hand when he first showed up because he was a guy and she was a girl, but he learned very quickly how much of an equalizer the gun can really be.
While on the phone with 911, the male was inside the house. The female was armed with a handgun, and the male then left the residence. Moments later, that male came back into the residence armed with a handgun of his own. Once he entered the residence, the male put the gun to the boyfriend's head that was inside the house. At that point, the woman who lived inside the house fired 1 round, striking and killing the ex-boyfriend. The 3 children who were inside the residence were not injured, and when police arrived, medical personnel pronounced the male deceased.
I've lost count of the number of times I've seen or heard anti-gun people mock other people who carry a firearm on a daily basis by telling them that they should learn to fight instead of carrying a gun, or that people who carry guns are pussies. This is not Street Fighter. This is reality. A lot of people have limitations and natural disadvantages that carrying a gun will help them overcome if they're ever attacked. Are you gonna call a 70-year-old retiree who walks with a cane a pussy because he carries a gun for protection? You're gonna call a wounded veteran with a missing leg a pussy because he carries a gun for protection? Or how about this woman in the story? You're gonna unironically call her a pussy for having a gun for protection? Guns are tools that can be used for good or bad, but most importantly, they are tools that equal the playing field. When someone decides they want to physically attack someone they have a natural physical advantage over. Take the story of Carol Bone. Carol Bone was a 39-year-old hairdresser who was dealing with a crazy ex-boyfriend. He was so crazy that she took out a restraining order out against him and applied to getting her license to buy a gun. You see, in New Jersey, you have to get a license just to buy a gun. And the government in New Jersey is notorious for taking their sweet little time to approve applications because in the end, they really don't want any of their citizens to have firearms. The state mandates that applications be granted within 30 days. Carol submitted her application for a gun license on April 21st of that year. On June 3rd of that same year, Carol's ex-boyfriend stabbed her to death outside of her home. What makes this even sadder is that 2 days before she died, Carol went to check on the status of her application. Carol died because her ex-boyfriend stabbed her to death, but Carol was unable to effectively defend herself because she was forced to wait on a piece of paper that said she could go out and buy a firearm to protect herself. We have 2 women, both with crazy ex-boyfriends, both attacked by their crazy ex-boyfriends, but only one of them had a gun, while the other woman was forced to wait for permission to buy a gun. Unfortunately, the only one of them alive today is the woman who had a gun. Gun control is a facade, a false sense of security. You're the only person you can depend on when it comes to protection. Everything else is just value added. If the police show up on time, great, but you can't count on it. When the monster shows up at your doorstep, you either have the means to deal with it or you don't. You know, for as short as the Second Amendment actually is, it's amazing to me how many people don't actually know what the Second Amendment says. That's why I decided to come out with the If You Know, You Know Second Amendment shirt design. What this shirt is designed to do is not only just make you look good, but also be a passive educator. It's designed to grab attention, of course, but then also cause people to ask you if you know what exactly. And that's when you can let them know exactly what the Second Amendment says verbatim. That's how short the Second Amendment actually is. It fits in each of these letters. So Head over to shop.mrcolionnoir.com and get your If You Know the Second Amendment shirt design so you can look good and passively educate people at the same time. You know how frightening it is to think about what happens in the moments before, during, and even days after having to use your gun in self-defense? When you first start carrying a gun for protection, it can be a very scary and nerve-wracking experience, especially if you haven't gotten the education and training you need to feel confident. I've been there myself, hoping I never have to go through a self-defense shooting, which is why I'm a member of the USCCA. As a USCCA member, you can eliminate some of the stress of carrying a gun for protection by accessing the amazing wealth of firearm education, training, and current state-specific gun laws of your state or states you may travel to. This can help you be prepared for or hopefully even avoid a self-defense incident. As a bonus, members automatically become insured on the self-defense liability insurance policy purchased by and issued to the USCCA. Click below to learn more. I'm sure the YouTube algorithm is going to do a phenomenal job of suppressing this message. So please share this video with as many people as you can so we can beat the algorithm and get our two-way message out to the masses. Also, don't forget to like this video and leave a comment and hit the bell and subscribe button.